Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Everything before this second has to be cut out of the podcast.
Yeah.
No, really.
Anyway, look, isn't it good to be back?
Well, I was here all the time. Where have you two work-shy gits been?
Oh, yeah, Workshire.
Well, do you know what? I was listening in on Claire talking from the sort of background, trying not to go and get involved, and I didn't do what she does to me when I'm on the recording this. You know, she comes in with a cup of tea or coffee. I thought, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep out just in case it's something scurrilous. But it actually turned out to be not scurrilous. It was all ridiculously grown up and sensible, with points to the point and a breadth of interesting stuff. And there was no lamb cuddling, there was no selfies, there was no Instagrammers and influencery type stuff. It was lovely. So I mean, it almost befuddled me. How can these possibly be women who live in the countryside? I thought everything had to be in soft focus with lamb cuddling and flicking your hair about and pretending to be somebody you're not. But I'm wrong, obviously.
I had to put a bit of sexism in there just to balance it out.
What?
Nobody knows what we're talking about. We did a International Women's Day special where the women took over.
Well,
And
2/3 of the women.
You gave no context to that one.
It's okay. We expect our
Sorry.
audience to follow all of our things. They know all about us. It's all about us.
I really enjoyed I listened to it. So I listened to half of it, and then I went back and I listened to the whole thing this morning. I like the way that the first 10 minutes, Amy managed to cover off the first thing was shopping. And I was like, shopping. I think we were only makeup and boys away from making it a terrible, terrible episode. But thankfully it moved on quite quickly. So well done.
Oh, well.
I genuinely think there was some amazing points in there, stuff that we wouldn't cover.
Yeah.
It was a really good episode.
And I don't think I said on the episode that minutes before we recorded, in fact, we were a bit late recording because due to the unique way our drains are built, they blocked in the floods about 6 weeks ago, and we've only just found out. So Amy was rodding the drains minutes before we went to record for the International Women's Day special. So I have a photo which will go out, probably on the Patreon, of Amy sort of squatting over the drain, hosing it out. And that was my International Women's Day photo.
With a rod.
I hope you were drinking coffee, shouting girl boss.
Shouting
Yeah, that
girl
could be taken two
power.
ways, couldn't it?
Yeah. It's like, yeah, exactly.
Girl boss, girl boss.
Oh, we nearly were progressive for one episode.
Excellent.
She's got her own chainsaw. What else do you want? Speaking of chainsaws, I had a phone call this week from a man saying, now, you don't know me, but I've been stealing your trees, which is always a good opener. And
I'm hooked.
There's a bit of woodland we managed, 90 acres, and he's been going up there, cutting out bits of red oak to go away and do wood carvings with and sell them. And it was only because he'd been caught by one of the neighbours that he discovered that it wasn't owned by the council. So he wasn't nicking from the council, he was nicking from a real person, which is me. So he fessed up, but he did wait until he'd finished the carving and then sent me a photo, then rang me.
Well,
So it was quite good.
I hope you made him give you a share in the profits.
And what did he carve?
Well, it's worse than that. He's really, really, really good, like world-class level. So there's a Welsh language singing cultural event, the Eisteddfod, and they have the Bard's Chair, which is this sort of the thing, the Bard, and it's all to do with the Druids and stuff. But there's a competition every year to make the Bard's Chair. And a couple of years ago, he won for this one piece of oak made into a whole chair. So this isn't just, it's a bit of a rustic spoon. This is world-class carving. And it's annoying when you meet somebody who's so talented, because it's like, oh, well, I can't do that now. I've met somebody who's doing something I could never be able to do. It's just
No,
another thing,
I'm
another
sorry.
potential disappointment in my life.
Thieves are thieves. I don't care. I mean, you know, however
Set fire to him.
however they go and
Cut
dress
their
up.
hands off,
That's what I'd do. Round here, we'd have him hung up from
and
the
he'll never carve again.
gibbet. No, well, say, which hand do you carve with, mate? Oh, me right. I'll have that one then. Chop off. If we started doing a bit more of that, we would stop half the theft in the countryside. ATVs would no longer be stolen. You know, all the things that get nicked by these absolute hedge monkeys running around nicking stuff. Chop a hand off. That'll stop them, or at least in the stocks.
It is ameliorated somewhat by the fact he said he also has a Stihl 880 with a 41-inch bar.
Good God.
And I have 2 oak trees with 5-foot diameter trunks that I need the butt and the crown taking off so I can take them away and mill them. So
I take it that some kind of wood pervert's
That's a big saw.
dream.
Big saw.
massive chainsaw, massive, nearly 4-foot long chainsaw.
Yeah, that's a big boy, big felling saw, sort of ones you see
Yes.
with those Americans wielding about the place. Yeah, a lot bigger than the one that you've seen me use, because we use little hedging saws. So yeah, well, I still think he deserves his hands chopped. Well, actually, do you know, we used to get in one of the woods that we get our stakes and binders from, we get someone coming in pilfering stuff, and he's a stick maker, and he goes around and he cuts out, because a stick, you know, thumbstick type thing, is about the diameter that you would have for a hedge binder. And this old boy goes in there, but because he's ancient, he doesn't want to bend down. So rather than cutting it off right down at the bottom of the stool, he just sort of goes out,
Oh,
old man
no.
with a bad back height, and cuts it off at that thing. And he makes a lot of walking sticks, clearly, because he goes around gleaning out the best he can, lopping these things off at about waist height. And it's bad enough that you got someone going in.
Like a browse line.
Yes, it's a
but
browse line. So we've got Muntjac Low. You've then got Roadie. You've then got decrepit old man in Wake's walking sticks. He can have his hand chopped off as well.
Vindictive pollarding. It's not even
I
proper
feel it's-
pollarding. It's too small to do anything with.
It's an invasion of our privacy.
I was in a wood today that all of the oaks were heavily pollarded, and they were all very, very, very old. And it was amazing to see the shape and the texture as the sun rose on these old pollarded oaks. They're all like great big trunks with all these spindly bits, and yeah, just made for an excellent backdrop.
Was
Much
your
better than
artistic eye sort of winking at them? Just was it all happy and?
Yeah, you get a little bit of satisfaction out of that. See what I do love as well? A twisted willow.
Okay.
Twisted willow against a grey sky. Just the shape.
So you have to chop one down,
Top tier tree.
and then when you try and cut a big willow down, they inevitably try and kill you. They're devils for doing that. I was out in the Brecks today counting hedge plants that were either alive or dead that had been planted. And the Brecks is a funny old place. It's very, very, very poor soil, grainy, sandy soil. And the only trees that really grow there are Scots pine, because obviously that's where Thetford Forest is. So out in the farmland, the only things that really
They put those in to stop it, to stop the sand blowing off, to destroy the crops.
Absolutely, yeah. It was. I mean, there's this thing called Breckland blow, and the Breckland blow. It's constantly there is a wind that blows there all the time, because Santon Downham is always one of those places that everyone's heard of, but they think, where do I know that from? And it's the place that whenever they go and talk about in the weather that we've had the driest spell for X amount of time, Santon Downham is it. And I believe Santon Downham has
Oh, is
got
that it?
the
Yeah.
coldest, the highest, and the driest records in Britain, the whole of Britain. So, I mean, it's that sort of thing. And utterly bizarre, but I found this ash tree today that had been pollarded. And when you think that Breckland trees and hedgerow plants grow about 2/3 slower than they would do where I am, only 25 miles away, because the soil's so weak there. This thing, well, it would have taken the three of us if we'd sort of held hands in some sort of Right to Rome-esque weird green hippie thing and cuddled the tree as one. I don't think that our hands would have joined if we'd circled the three of us. It's that massive. And I thought, how long have you been there for? Because that had been pollarded. And this vast, great big stump that was there, and it's still living. So I mean, it obviously shrugged off, ash dieback, but wow, what an amazing thing they do. I think pollarding does something to them, makes them all curlicued and amazing.
It wasn't suspiciously close to the corner of a minor stately home, just tapping on the window, that people kept dying in that room in the corner, was it? Sorry, that's my M.R. James joke.
No, it wasn't.
There's about 6 people in the audience who got that. That was
completely
I'm
lost.
gonna say.
Oh, you should read it. The Ash Tree.
I won't.
You won't. You won't.
Only look at pictures.
Yeah.
All right. Stephen Fry's from Breckland. He's from Swaffham.
Mm-hmm. Near there. Yeah.
Doesn't strike me as a Swaffham type.
Mm.
Well, his dad was some electronic engineer whiz, wasn't he? Stephen Fry.
One of his funniest books, called The Hippopotamus, is set around there. And that is worth it. It hasn't dated. It's still funny now. But yeah, he's got a house which is sort of up that sort of way. Looks a right scruffy old place. I can remember a friend of mine saying, "We've had that Stephen Fry move in. He's got a taxi in the garden." And that was the thing that they were more impressed with, was that he drove around in a taxi, because I think that when he used to go into London, he could get around sort of going through bus lanes.
Was it congestion charge and bus lanes?
It's bus
or
lanes,
something,
yeah. So I think it's before congestion charges came in. They were taxis were allowed to use bus lanes, so he did that. Yeah. So he's another.
It's Booton.
There you go.
Booton, yeah. I've just realised it was actually Swaffham is where an ex-girlfriend lived.
Swaffham?
Not Stephen Fry.
Well, Swaffham is home to the oldest coursing club in Britain, the Swaffham Coursing Club. And it's in the Greyhound pub in the middle of Swaffham. There's the plaque on the wall. And so therefore it was one of those wondrous old places and there's still got a large traveller community who live on the edge of it. So I think a lot of the coursing that goes on today / poaching is largely stemmed from
Fun fact, Swaffham Calf is home to the greasiest slice of fried bread I've ever experienced in my life.
Oh, really?
Really?
1 star. Would not recommend.
Well, I tell you what.
How greasy was this bread?
I mean, if you looked at it, you'd need armbands.
Swaffham was the site of the greatest pub fight I've ever seen, though. Ever seen.
Seen or been involved in?
I was on the peripheries. I'll be perfectly honest.
No comment.
The combatants were far bigger and harder than me. And some of my old military compadres had a minor altercation with some of the travelling community. And we weren't allowed back into Swaffham anymore. Put it that way. It was a hell of a good one.
I'm just thinking of stories I can't tell. So what else? What have you been up to, Callum? Every time I message you or we speak, you keep trying to talk to me, and then you're suddenly too busy to talk, and you've got to go again, and you just keep telling me how your life is falling apart.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it has gone.
Well, tell us about it. Let's us get some entertainment out of it.
I had quite a semi-easy weekend, but Monday started a day of doing working stuff, then followed by I did the Amateur Photographer Awards, which is confusingly named because it was a magazine that started like nearly 140 years ago, when an amateur was somebody who was a keen enthusiast, essentially. So, yeah, I did the AP Awards. I photographed it and attended as a guest, I suppose. Although it very much felt like work. And then I ran desperately for the last train home, the Vomit Comet, as
Vomit
it's affectionately
Comet.
known. And we, I managed to get like 3 hours sleep, and done a commission for the field today, which was shooting, doing some deer management, shooting lots of species of deer in Suffolk, which included a surprising number of Chinese water deer, fallow, muntjacs, of course, because there's always tons of those, and a red
And a red.
and a red deer. So yeah,
Yeah.
we got all four. There are roe deer, but it wasn't really necessary because it was we were doing a job essentially. Yeah, it was they're doing some damage. There's a large number of them, and yeah, we were taking some pictures. I was in a nice part of the world. I've never really been that side, so it was all the way from sort of Melton / Woodbridge area, all the way down to the coast. So that's Sutton. I did just Sutton Hoo kind of area.
Rounding in history there, aren't you?
And there was a lovely what's it called? What was the pub we went to?
Unruly Pig.
The Old Badger. Monkey's Revenge.
Was it the Unruly Pig?
Probably the Red Lion.
No,
it was not.
You're just making that up.
Was it the Unruly Pig? That's the best pub round there.
Right. Wait a minute.
What's it called again, Richard?
Say
the Unruly Pig. He's been to the Unruly Pig. That's where he's been to.
I didn't. I promise. No, it was down by the. I'm not sure we're allowed to say that we're on the.
Was it the Unruly Pig?
I know where you mean. No, you're not allowed to say that.
Ramsholt
Arms. It's a very, very interesting picture, actually.
Say, Richard, you need to say, were you in the Ramsholt Arms?
Okay. Were you in the Ramsholt Arms?
Oh, yes, I was.
Were you in the Ramsholt
Arms? Oh, yes, I was,
Shush
Richard.
now. Were you in the Ramsholt Arms?
Oh, yeah, that's the one. That's the very fellow.
I'll tell you a funny thing about the Ramsholt Arms. Why are you like
this?
I'll tell you about the Ramsholt Arms.
I don't know. I'm so tired.
There's a brilliant drive on the shoot there. The gun actually stands in the river in the Orwell, and he
what?
Well, yeah, there's a peg. The peg is actually stood in the Deben, sorry. And because you can see to the left, you can see the cranes of Felixstowe, can't you? And you stand in that peg, and there's a great photograph of the late Duke of Edinburgh stood on that peg, and I think it's called the Duke's Peg or something like that.
If there's any place to go in the summer sunset and just sit and watch the world go by with a pint, that's the place. The view over the river is phenomenal. Even today, bit of sunshine on the water. What a lovely place.
If Orford Ness had ever exploded, that would have been a good place to watch it from, wouldn't it? For half a second.
Well, I tell you, here's an interesting thing about Orford Ness. My aunt, by marriage, her father was the shepherd during the war on that island. They grazed it because obviously it's out where the radar station was, and he used to have to take sheep on and off the island on a boat. But he was quite proud of the fact that he was the shepherd with the highest security clearance in the country during that, because he'd go out with all these sort of sneaky beaky and clever young men who were twiddling knobs on radar, and there's this old boy Dick going out across the river on a boat just to go and check the sheep, and then have to bring one or two back if they were sort of bit leery or something like that, and he had to come back, and that, so he was very proud of the fact that he had to swear the Official Secrets Act and sign something that he'd be shot if he ever revealed the secrets of Orford Ness.
For the listeners are wondering what the hell we're talking about, Orford Ness was basically Britain's Los Alamos. It was our nuclear research place, and I think it was, hang on, I might get this wrong, so I apologize, but wasn't it where they worked out the concentric explosion thing? So they worked out that you could, by arranging explosive tiles in the correct formation, you can make the explosion go in, which would give you that critical thing, which made the nuclear bomb go off.
I don't know.
And
I don't know.
it's around the core.
All I know is that out at Bordsey and places like that, it's where all the big radar stuff was. So that was sort of you can. I think it's at Bordsey. It's the masts are all there still, and you can see that when you're shooting on the on the old, you can see on a clear day, you can see those out there, and they're quite atmospheric. But the what's it called? The lighthouse has just been dismantled at Orford. They decided that
Do we not need it anymore?
well, I can't remember the reason why. There was a thing to try and save it, but someone Starmer probably got rid of it or something. I don't know. Thought it wasn't. It was too attractive, so he thought he'd just destroy it. I can't actually quote me on that, but I think it sounds like him.
The other two claims to fame Orford has, it was where they filmed the primary school that his wife worked at in Detectorists.
Yes, correct.
That was Orford. And it's where John Seymour, the sort of the homesteading back to the land bloke, it's all his fault for going off and being self-sufficient. He bought a place in Orford, somewhere just around the corner from there. And yeah, somewhere, some manky bit of ground in between pine trees from memory.
Yeah, lots of old pine down there.
There's a castle there, isn't there?
There is. Yes, it's
Orford Castle.
It's a very old one. And there's also, if you're at Pinneys of Orford, very good smokery. So if you want to go and have some decent fish, well smoked, Pinneys of Orford, they're your place to be. And just down the road from there at Chillersford is a very good restaurant called the Froys, which is owned by David Grimwood. His son is on one of the fishing boats out of Orford. But if you go to the Froys, and he is an avid wildfowler and game shot, and you will always find at the Froys, and because the Froys means that's the term for a group of pintail together. And the Froys restaurant is a cracking one. And if you're into eating game, that's one of the few restaurants you'll go into where not only can you guarantee that whatever's in season that's caught or shot locally will be in there, but most likely that either David Grimwood has shot it himself, or his son has dragged it out the sea, or one of David's friends has, and it's a grand old place. It's the Froys. We ought to put a link up to that because he's a good old boy, because he runs the Aldborough Food Festival, or is heavily involved with it as well.
They're wheelchair accessible, according to Google.
Is it?
This episode is brought to you by the Suffolk Tourist Board.
Yes. If you listen
it's
to
always brought
CountrySlide,
to you by the bloody Suffolk Tourist
wow,
Board.
look, you've got to get in there. I mean, look, Suffolk gets little, if any, headlines other than because they either say that we are in the south of England,
Other than farmer caught with pants down.
what we're going to do? Are we going to be having sex with some wheat? Oh yes. Oh, there's nothing I like more than a bit of sugar beet. That's the Welsh you're talking about. So you can speak to Richard about that. They're the ones that have got all the livestock on the west.
Not Welsh.
Stories like, well, it's nearly Easter. We could get that. What's that god awful paper that likes to run the story about people putting Cadbury's cream eggs up their bum?
Sunday Sport.
What? Sunday Sport.
Yeah,
That's a
we all knew
fine
it.
publication. The Sunday Sport is a fine publication.
What were you outraged? What were you outraged at then? The Cadbury's cream egg up the bum, or that I said the Sunday Sport is god awful?
Well,
God awful.
because
Cadbury's cream egg up the bum is standard fare.
I'm not being funny.
Oh, okay, fair
The
enough.
Sport is a fantastic newspaper, because the funny thing about the Sport is it's a bit like the Sun. Is that my father-in-law, who was a journalist, he said the best journalists and best writers don't write for the Times. They certainly don't write for the Guardian. That's utterly clear. Nor the Telegraph, or any of the thinking men's broadsheets. He said they have to write for the worst tabloidy newspapers everywhere, because he said they've got to condense that information down into not only short form, but they've got to use words which are short enough so that the general readership is going to understand it, and it's got to be pithy and to the point, and it's also got to have the addition of boobs. Now, the sport is even better, because what they do is that they don't think, well, everyone's got to understand this and go and catch the news. All they do is they just go to the boobs bit, and as long as it's got a dwarf, a cream egg, or some boobs in it, that's all they do. And how they've managed to keep going for so long just on those three topics of boobs, dwarfs, and cream eggs is, well, hats off to them. Well done, them.
I'm looking at some of the headlines. One of them is Ghost of Diana haunts my teapot.
Yeah.
We should play a game where I read out headlines and 2 are true and 1 is false, and you have to guess. Sex with Tesco's value lasagna blistered my bellend. A lot of knob ones.
What have you been up to this week, Richard?
Back in the room. At Christmas, I got involved and helped found a community interest company, a CIC. So sort of like a limited company, except you don't get paid. Sort of halfway between a company and a charity. And we went for funding for different things, and we got our first round of funding for something. So we've been pricing up polytunnels and other bits for a project. But we've also been asked, sort of softly, but it's going to become more firmed up over the coming weeks, to administer and organise the first farm cluster in North Wales.
Oh, well done. Brilliant.
Under that scheme. So
this sounds really good and really...
It's like a real person did it.
Like a real person thing.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Can we stop going wildly off topic now and talk about knobs?
Cream eggs.
Yes. How's your knobs? Yes. Seen any good knobs recently, Callum?
No, I was only joking. Well done to you. I know you've behind the scenes. I don't think people realise we're real people, but I know that you've actually been working on this for many, many months. So, yeah,
Me
congratulations
and some others. Yes.
Yeah, well done on getting this stuff over the line, because it always feels like a massive uphill battle, but then to actually finally get that must be a relief, right?
It is, and thank you. And Amy wrote the application for that one, so she deserves the credit for it.
Done,
and
Amy.
Given the announcements that we're recording this on Tuesday night on the 11th, so given what's just been announced about the SFI for England, additional ways of working for landscapes and nature and better outcomes for nature in farming suddenly becomes much more important. So hopefully that's what the work I'm going to be doing more of this summer. So
That's brilliant.
you'll hear more about it when we need some more money. I'll be begging for it on here.
Well, I mean, I'm afraid, unfortunately, one of the most important things that's we're going to need to plight our troth to funders other than the government, because, like you say, is that the government in its infinite wisdom. I mean, I know that I go on about them, but this time they have. If they were any lower, there are now fat snakes with particularly low-slung bellies who are thinking, the government's gone lower than my belly button. They're that bad. That bad.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, so
In this specific instance, what are you talking about?
Give us the briefing.
you've heard me talk about the Sustainable Farming Incentive, the SFI, which was basically the thing that was one of the things under Elms, which was brought in by the last government, which basically
Is that like not wrecking land and
correct.
dumping water bad places and
Public money for public good thing.
It was all supposed to pay farmers so that they could farm more sustainably and more effectively, and certainly with a view to environmental good. And as Richard says, public money for public good was the term that Michael Gove, who wrote it, came up with it. Well, this lot in power now have decided that not only have they snatched away the money which the farmers were supposed to be getting, the tail end, the fag end of the European
Is that
money.
Elms payment?
Well, no, this was the last bits of the common agricultural policy, so that they capped that off. So farm budgets went fut straight away. They capped it at 7,200 quid, regardless of how much money you got. We know that they froze the capital works grant. They unfroze it again, but they rather cleverly put it to start in June, which means most of the work that would be done won't actually be getting done because you do it in the winter. Most of the DEFRA budget has been cut in real terms by 1.9%. But the SFI was this thing that basically they said, right, now listen, guys, we're going to take away loads of the money that Europe had been giving you, and we had earmarked for you under the last government, but we decided to take that away. And then what we're going to do is we're going to pay you lots of money, don't worry, to do more environmental stuff. And now they've suddenly said, right, that's it, stopped. Unless you'd have already applied for it, you're not getting anything. So basically, we can safely say that this government not only hates farmers, not only are they trying to nick their land because they've just changed the laws or about to change the laws on compulsory purchase. So therefore, land will now, rather than being sold at market value, that a council can buy it at market value, it will be sold at use value. Well, we know that farmers don't get paid naffle for their crops anyway, so therefore councils can buy it if they want to compulsorily for bottom dollar, and they're not going to pay you to do any of the good works anyway. So basically, they have, in 7 months, 8 months, they have managed to bankrupt farming, bankrupt the countryside, and also destroy dozens in each region of rural businesses. They have done this in 8 months. 8 months is quite mad. There's no justification for it other than the £22 billion black hole. So
bankrupting might be a bit of a stretch.
no, it's not.
But
No, it's not a bit of a stretch. It is actually the reality. 25% of land-based businesses have said they are facing bankruptcy in the next year. And that I've just got that from one of the leading accountancy firms in the agricultural sector. So quarter,
as in land based, as in farming.
yes, related to the
Where working on the
agricultural
land
sector.
is a significant part of the.
So this goes from everything from obviously individual farmers through to the men who sell on their tractors, through to contractors in any shape or form, like me, for example. I mean, we're very fortunate is that we've just landed a contract with someone who isn't relying upon anything coming from the government. Otherwise, I'll be thinking, dear, this is serious again. But
Since that came out this evening, I've been in a WhatsApp group with some people I'm not allowed to talk about, but they sort of involved in policy things in the countryside. That's about as much as I can say. And one of the things that's been brought up in there is effectively the government have realised that people don't. The public care about farmers to a point, but they don't actually care that much about land, nature, or food security compared to things like cost of living, defence, NHS, immigration. They have much more interest in those things than they do in the stuff that we care about. And that realization might be part of this. Basically, it's a good place to make policy changes while they work out what to do about the big stuff.
It sounds like there's a shift in priority of all of the stuff that we considered good to cheap food and dirty farming practices, and that's the main thing. And if that fails, then they'll just build solar farms and
utterly.
solar farms and houses on that land instead.
Or both.
That's basically the long and the short of it. It's quite if your aim is that you think, well, we've been investing now and they've been sending not just this government, the previous one and the one before that, has been sending lots of money overseas in overseas aid to increase agricultural growing power in third world countries, and indeed in other countries which, to be perfectly honest, they have lower welfare standards than we do, so therefore their food is cheaper. And they have bet the house, this bunch, Starmer's gang of crooks, that they bet the house on the fact that we aren't ever going to really need to have food security here. So I think we're currently at 54% food security. If that dropped by another 10%, 20%, they wouldn't really mind because, well, they think, well, why bother? We can still import it cheaper. We can grow it here and we can produce this energy. They have said they want to have green energy, whatever that is, that's not very green, and they want to build lots more houses. And they're the two things that have nailed their colours to the mast. And the fall guys, I'm afraid, are agriculture. And the collateral damage in this wish is, I'm afraid, nature. There's no two ways about it. The SFI was designed to be an environmental good. So, they've done for it. And they are so strong with such a large majority, their supposed opposition reform, who was suddenly coming up on the wings, decided to commit suicide by shooting the only decent chap that they have, Rupert Lowe, squarely between the eyes.
Yeah.
And the Conservatives are in complete freefall because they don't really quite know what they are. Was a Kemi Badenoch sort of floating around. So Labour are doing, yeah, great, I'm making hay. The only bit of farming that's going on is Starmer making hay whilst the sun shines. It's quite an inspired idea. Anyway,
I've just got to say, when Claire finished the episode with sometimes you tune out, Richard's like having the radio on in the background, might possibly have been one of the best and funniest descriptions of you I've ever heard in my life.
It is quite accurate, isn't it? It's a good
I
radio
could happily
station.
drop in and out of such things.
It's a good,
I love
it's a good radio station.
I'm here.
It's we're thinking, there's something interesting.
I'm here
going
every week.
Anyway, yes, listen.
I listened to it live in concert. Has anything interesting happened to you this week, Richard?
Well, yes, it has. As you know, I do a lot of hedge laying, and one of our friends of the show, Jonathan Harpham, has sent me very kindly some stuff, which is trichoderma granules, right? 5 grams of trichoderma granules. And basically what they are is that they are a little thing you sprinkle on either a coppice stool or a laid hedge, and hey presto, they make them boom up more. So he said, I want to do a little bit of a trial, see if your laid hedges, do one on a length and see if that they come back.
What the difference is between them.
Yeah. So now he sent me a tub marked Magic Tree Drugs. Now he actually this is in
solid start
in an envelope, right? So anyway, he sent me through with a lovely letter from him saying all about what I ought to do and also the other stuff that he's going to send me. Anyway, this envelope arrived that had been very neatly sliced through at the top. Right?
Well, he sent it through the post.
Through the post, yes. Second class. This is Jonathan we're talking about. He's a good old boy from Peterborough, so you didn't think.
And this is And this is powder.
This is powder with Magic Tree drugs written on it.
Right, he sent you okay. I was just for clarity. He sent you Magic Tree drugs.
Yes, in a little pot that says Magic Tree drugs. So somewhere from it leaving Jonathan's house and him putting it into the post box, the sorting office to get to Suffolk, the Magic Tree drugs went. And they never arrived at my house. All I got was Jonathan's lovely letter, no Magic Tree drugs. So obviously somewhere in the process, someone has gone, and I don't know if they scan stuff or they hold it up to the light and they've seen magic, and it is the letter is folded so that the first thing in the tub marked magic tree drugs are some soluble trichoderma granules. Now, if you're someone in the habit of working perhaps for the Royal Mail who might be in the habit of stealing stuff which is sort of delivered through the post in drugs, because you've had drugs delivered to you, haven't you, Callum, by mistake some time ago?
I did.
Yes. So, well, this here obviously wasn't. This is actually just some stuff to pour onto trees, but someone has. Now, I've got the notion in my head, right, is that this dude thinks, haha, I've managed to get this free drugs. And I want to see that this dude now has either sniffed this up his nose or he's put it in a cigarette, and what has grown on him as a result.
What is the? I bet it's free of fungus, so that's probably. If he works in the post office, that could be great.
Honestly, I would like to say, someone's stolen my magic tree drugs, postmaster, and see what they do. I could probably go down to Stowmarket and they go.
That's a Sunday Sports headline.
It is. Yeah, the postmaster stole my magic tree drugs. I can't believe it. It's
That's an episode title.
What a liberty. Someone's stealing my tree drugs. So anyway, I didn't get that through the post. I got a lovely letter, though.
What were they? What was
basically,
thing?
it's a soluble stuff. It's soluble trichoderma granules. So you mix a teaspoon of these with 10 litres of water and spray liberally in the rooting area of any recently laid or planted hedges, and you should see a marked response in health and establishment. So it's basically like a rooting hormone, more or less. It's but it's a natural fungus that encourages the roots to come out a bit quicker.
Like testosterone?
No, because this is more fungal based.
Testosterone's a rooting hormone, isn't it?
Is it? That's progesterone. No, I don't know. Oh, I get you. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Ah, he's got it. I know, it's been a long day.
So anyway, yes. So he says, if you really want to fire them up, add some horticultural molasses to the mix. Now, I can just see this dude. He probably read all this stuff and goes, I'm going to do all that, because he probably didn't read any further than magic tree drugs, really. And so now he's mainlined basically stuff. So he's high as a kite and looks like a flipping oak tree. Great. Junkies of Suffolk.
You've sent me on a rabbit hole of looking at trichoderma now.
Mm.
Yeah, I just looked at, you'd probably get tummy issues, potentially an allergic reaction, and respiratory concerns if inhaled during ingestion.
Good.
Thanks, ChatGPT.
I hope that this individual gets all those.
Look for the wheezing postman, is what I'm saying.
And I'll chop his hand off. Bloody people.
Do you think Jonathan Harpham will be disappointed if he finds out he's started the next day of the Triffids or something?
Yeah. Well,
and this guy is now just spreading out around Suffolk.
Well, do you know, actually, it's a true story. When I was in Leicestershire, we grew quite a bit of hemp. We grew quite a bit of, but it was hemp for.
Did you?
Well, not that sort of hemp. This was the hemp for making bags and hemp clothing and stuff like that. People thought, "Oh, this is really good," and it's obviously quite a good break crop.
Friendly hemp, not the
friendly
really
hemp.
Friendly
Yes,
hemp.
the non-smoking in a joint type thing. Well, anyway, there was some rather itinerant gang who used to come into our local pub, and they were saying, "Have you seen that stuff that's growing at yours?" And I went, "Yeah." And he said, "That's weed, isn't it?" And I went, "Oh no," I said, "That's hemp." I said, "But the middle acre is where the good stuff is." And they went, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, we can't have all that, otherwise we'd get done." I said, "So you just grow the middle acre of this, and that's where we grow the good stuff." And they went, "Oh." And I can remember the guy who contracted this bit of the land. I said, "Well, that is basically cannabis." He goes, "Yeah." He said, "But you'd have to smoke the whole field." And he said, "And you still wouldn't even feel slightly dizzy." And so anyway, because we'd said this to them, he said, 3 or 4 days later, we went, "You won't believe this." He said, the middle of the bloody field, he said they'd cut the whole lot down, because he was in the pub with us. And And so, yeah, they went there, and I just thought you just guarantee they're going to get their legs broken, because they probably thought they're being very clever, dried it all out and sold it all around Leicester. And then when everyone's sort of smoking this stuff, and it's basically they're just smoking a flipping, what they call bag for life. It's
Yeah.
not necessarily that good, really. Oh yeah, mate, this stuff you sold me, it just tastes like a bag.
When I was trying to be a good teenager and I had a Saturday job, I worked in a shop that sold scale models and radio controlled stuff and railway models and that kind of thing.
Is this Chubby Jesus sort of era?
No, this is when I was about 14, and somebody used to come in there and every week would buy the little like fake bushes and things and lichens and stuff he used to use on Hornby railway sets to make foliage. And I discovered a while later that what he was doing was buying it, bagging it up, and trying to sell it in the pubs around about 11 o'clock at night when people were desperate. And he would just go to a pub he doesn't go to normally and try and sell off a load of Hornby railway bushes.
Great.
In little baggies.
Yes. 00 gauge.
Which is not technically illegal.
No.
It's just...
No. I mean, what are they going to do? Do him under the
Trading
Trades
Standards might have a
Descriptions
go.
Act?
No.
Yeah. I mean, just the sort of thing. Excuse me, officer. You won't believe this. I was at the pub innocently buying cannabis, and it turned out to be Hornby 00 gauge foliage. What am I going to do? Yeah.
You'd be so thrilled if the sniffer dogs came in and left you alone, wouldn't you? Have you ever had that in a pub?
What? Sniffer dogs?
Yeah.
No.
I guess that's an Essex thing.
Is it a flat roof pub? Was there a dog on the roof on a chain?
Mate, our pubs are rougher than sandpaper, mate. Some of them are pretty bad.
No.
This is the Essex tourist board now, is it?
At one point, the Rouge Lion, which is just down the end of the street, at one point, this is probably late 90s. I remember walking past with my dad, and a chair came through the window, and there was like an almighty punch up, but that was just like really an average night in the Red Lion. And there's another pub called the Skipper, and
that's when your butterfly
in the
pubs.
2000s that was notorious for punch ups on the regular. But I worked in a pub, the White Horse, and on a semi-regular basis, I used to get raided Saturday nights with sniffer dogs, and quite a lot of people would disappear to the toilets. There'd be a lot of flushing. Maybe they had, tummy troubles. Probably had a bit of that magic tree dust. And then
it's quite Moorish, I hear.
But also, a lot of pubs got closed down for it. One down the road got closed down, because Essex. I do not understand, but Essex has a thing about taking cocaine recreationally. Just,
I thought you were going to say rectally then.
They might do. I don't really know, but like as a very casual thing, and it's I really don't understand it, and it's really bizarre, and I wish it would stop. I don't know why people think that's a good idea to drink and take drugs on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Well, Colombian marching powders are still a massive thing in the construction industry. I know. Most throughout the winter, most houses are built at some level with white powder. Somewhere involved in there.
All tradies seem to be.
I wouldn't want to bet too much money on there being a completely clean blood test or urine test from every farming contractor working flat out every summer as well.
We had a guy the other year. It became a bit of a sort of minor internet salation. No, he was hauling wheat, and he was gunning it down the road next to Lake and Heath Air Base, and he just lost control. He was doing like 45, towing I don't know how many tons in the back, and he lost control, and it careered across the road, taking out a car. And I think it was proven that he was under the influence of something. I think probably speed to try and keep himself awake. Although that, interestingly, they reckon that the Wehrmacht in its march into France is what they were all on speed.
Unexpected Germans.
I know, unexpected
Yes, they
Germans
were.
in the farming
Amphetamines,
area.
yeah.
They were all on Pematin, I think it was called, which was actually you could buy over the counter from German pharmacies, which was basically speed. And so that's how they were supermen.
So anything
What
else?
were you up to this week?
Well, last week we heard some interesting things about Richard Negus from his wife.
Really?
We heard that he was once on Come Dine With Me.
Came last.
And we found the episode.
Yeah.
We found the link to it.
Came last.
Snail racing. Did you know about
Stole
snail
carrots.
racing?
Don't know about snail racing.
Mm.
I know he also got
His entertainment.
assessed. He went for sort of a casting call with a WI. I don't know if it's like a casting couch. If it's the same thing.
Well, it's much like my WI casting
Negus
couch.
does not know what casting couch
I do know what a casting. Oh, really? Oh no, not that sort. No. I didn't have to.
There's training videos.
I didn't have to go and do that.
Just Google it.
Goodness me! No, I'm not. No, I'm not googling anything you two tell me to do because you'll corrupt my computer. It's slow enough as it is. It's all got sort of viruses.
I'm just going to send you photos of white leather sofas and things.
No, I went to the WI actually, not as a member.
So you were on their casting
I was
couch?
on the no. This time I've been called to duty, and I gave my first talk because I don't know if I told you I've got a book coming out.
What's it about?
It's a book. It's about hedges. It's about hedges. Called Words from the Hedge.
And when's it out?
May the 1st. Published by Unbound.
Has it got hedges in it?
It's got hedges in it. Yeah. Anyway, so as part of my sort of promotional tour, I am trying to fit in every WI in East Suffolk with 96 of them. So I started off at Rushmere, which is just on the outskirts of Ipswich, and there were 60 ladies in there.
Is this your target market?
No.
Are you like Hedge Laying's version of Alan Titchmarsh?
Well, yeah, that basically, yeah. I'm sort of similar age to what he was when he was on the wire, on radio, telegraph, no, whatever it's called, television. Anyway.
Catnip for the golden oldies.
Yes. So Claire and I went together. So she had her pottery there because obviously she does this sort of hedgerow related stuff. And I talked to them about hedgerows. But do you know, the WI are amazing. And what I was very impressed by was that the chairwoman there, she had before I actually sort of went on, she'd been Googling me a bit and she'd found my Twitter account, X account, and she'd managed to go back.
Oh, this could go in different ways.
I know, to 2019. And she said, oh, I've been looking through, she's in front of all the crew there, all the 60 ladies.
Is this your Mel Gibson era?
Thank God, no. But she said, and she managed to find something.
Just angry voicemails.
She must have searched Richard Negus WI, and I've put one tweet saying, I think all parties are equally useless. If we were actually going to have a functioning government, I've got a solution, which was that 50% of politicians should be made up of ladies of the WI, and the other 50% of men who organise steam rallies. Because, I mean, if you think about it, that is the perfect thing, because most of the ladies in the WI are very well organised. Huge numbers of them had proper jobs before they sort of retired a bit or pulled back. They have got a great sense of decorum. They've got a great sense of order. They let people speak and then they'll counter that with a view. They're very good at organising stuff. And men who organise steam rallies, well, look, they've got kit. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of things that were bloody dangerous when they were first made and exploded for fun. Now they're like 100 years old and they've still got them all going around, and they've got kids going around on sort of things that go around which are run by steam. I mean, the opportunities for certain deaths.
And do you think these people should work together?
Yes,
into government?
Yes, very much so. I don't think there
See,
should be
this
any.
is where you're wrong.
Why?
And anyone that's ever arranged a steam rally has never spoken to a real woman.
But they
That's-
lubricate everything with goose fat.
No. I disagree with you because if you go,
Is that related
if
or
you go to a steam
unrelated?
rally, if you go
Take
to
it
the
as you will.
stationary engine section, which they're interesting, those bits, because they haven't even got a tractor to ride on. They're sat there, usually at the back of a transit van.
We've slipped into Alan Partridge.
with a little steam engine.
We have slipped so hard into Alan Partridge territory. Carry on.
Which is about the size of, I don't know, a television set, right? And this thing runs off, it goes pop, 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 and it pumps water around, right? And this chap sets it off running, and that's all he has to do. It does nothing. It just goes pop, 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 pop. And his wife, I can guarantee, is either crocheting or knitting. Oh, yes, they always have wives. He sat there in his overalls, looking miserable. She sat next to him, looking slightly miserable, doing crochet or knitting, right? But these people are literally feet away from certain death, because if it decides to blow, even these tiny, tiny little steam engines, they go off like Hiroshima. Well, you imagine, these men are able to organise all this, get all the safety stuff done. They managed to get lots of people from the St. John's ambulance there. They're great organisers with dangerous kit. And then you've got the Women's Institute who'll come rushing in and make sure it actually really works. So, it's basically, that would be the best government of all. This
is your white paper, is it?
The funniest thing about those steam rally things is that the steam engines can take a route to these fields, but they can't go anywhere near a thatched house because they will likely set them on fire.
Yeah.
So they have specific routes they have to go down in order to not set anyone's cottage on fire.
Yeah. This is why Fred Dibner was in Bolton, because there's nothing to set fire to there. It's all too damp.
We do have them come past us quite regularly, because we have quite a few steam rallies around here, and we also have tractor runs, which you just get a load of people. It's quite a clever thing, really. Hopefully no policemen are listening. But basically, if you want to do a pub crawl, right, in Suffolk, what you do is you get your old tractor from out the shed that you don't use anymore, you tart it up a bit, and then you go around and you have a tractor run. And so might have 40 guys will go from about 10 pubs, have a pint in each, and they're driving a tractor from like the 40s, 50s, 60s, and you stop in each pub, absolutely drunk as a lord by the time you've finished. You're raising a bit of money for charity, and you're able to drink and drive because everyone's going, hey, because you're all going past, hey, waving and stuff, and you're weaving all over the road, and they're thinking that's because you're in an old Massey Harris, but it's not. It's because you're drunk. But it's quite clever, really. And then we have a couple of really good steam rallies and vintage tractor fairs around here, and they are always well organised. I'd vote for them.
I went to one with you, didn't I?
You did. It's the Woolpit steam rally. Woolpit being famous for the green children. Yeah, that made you quiet, didn't it? The green children. Yeah.
Is this some sort of peasant joke?
No, right.
Well-bred to understand.
I'm not even going to explain this. I'll put it on the Patreon. Woolpit is famous for the green children. They found 2 green children. We're talking quite a long old while ago. I think it's about the sort of 1500s, something like that.
Before Sunny Delight, yeah?
Yeah, they said that. Perhaps they may be the forerunners of the people who stole my tree drugs. I don't know. But anyway, they were green and they spoke in a language that no one understood. And so if you go and Google the Woolpit Green Children, they found a brother and sister, which they think are brother and sisters. And they think actually what they just might have been was Dutch kids who had been washed up from the sea and had sort of arrived here, and they were speaking funny language, and that they thought they were a bit green. So I don't think they killed them.
Have you been on the tree drugs?
No, this is true.
It's not like Hartlepool where they hung the monkey.
Yeah, much the same, but I don't think they killed these.
What's it called?
The Woolpit, Woolpit, Woolpit Green Children.
Mate, Google's actually like, as soon as I put Woolpit and G, it's straight in there. It's saying green
tell
children.
you.
Is that what you mean? And I mean, because they're words that don't go together very often.
I should have asked Claire what is missing from your brain in order for you to retain all of these facts instead. What other things are you not doing?
We used to have a lovely lady, used to be on BBC
I think I know why.
Radio Suffolk, called Leslie Dolphin. And she said that if you try hard enough...
Sorry? Leslie Dolphin?
Dolphin, yeah, as in the sea mammal.
That's not a real name.
Yeah, that's her real name. She's lovely, Leslie Dolphin. And I used to do the Country Diary on Radio Suffolk, and I think I was once rude about Chris.
A series of clicks and noises.
I think I was. No, I used to have to go on here and talk, but I had less ums and ahs and knob gags and references to what you do with cream.
You have to pay to swim with her.
What's a real dolphin?
Don't strike her belly.
That's. Shush now! You are desecrating here.
She got a little.
You're desecrating.
She got a little tattoo. She's on her back of a human. She got embedded up.
I hope they take your book deal back off you after this.
You're desecrating a Suffolk legend.
Can you take an advance away?
Anyway, look, Leslie Dolphin. What was I talking about her? Oh yes, she reckons if you try hard enough, everything in life. Everything in life has got a Suffolk connection, and I think, you see, anything you can say, I can relate it back to Suffolk, and she proves this point with the Green Children of Woolpit. We've now got a Green MP here as well. He's not very popular, not like the Green Children.
Is he Dutch?
He speaks a load of double Dutch. He's always talking about carbon all the time.
Well, there won't be any of that left because we've got rid of all the hedgerows thanks to SFI.
Yeah, exactly.
So, how did you get on with the WI, which seems like a distant speck of memory now? Very well. I mean, and I think it's like a lot of rural societies, is that I don't know. In towns, cities, do they still have lots of clubs and societies anymore? I don't know. It's one of those funny things because WI is obviously a women's association, but they were attentive. They listened. They're appreciative. They laughed at the right places where I wanted them to laugh, and they sort of and you get a lovely thank you letter from them, and you get people coming up and sort of writing to you and say, thank you very much. I went out for a walk yesterday and I looked at hedgerows with a new light. And I think it's one of the things that perhaps is a bit of a rural anomaly. And I don't know. I'm going to ask you as to why you might think it is. Why do we have so many societies? It's an incredible thing. We have wildfowling associations, and we've got the local history societies, and we've got local this and local that, and go off, and we're going to listen to a talk by this chap here who's talking about the World War II airfields of Suffolk, and he'll have a packed house. I think if you did that in London, they'd go, "You're joking? I'm not doing that. I'm far too." Why is it that the countryside still has societies?
I think community groups are not necessarily just societies, but community groups are. At the AP Awards, there was an award for community, and they had a thing called She Clicks, which is a group of female photographers that all get together and support themselves.
That's what dolphins do.
What, Leslie?
Or clicks, yeah. She clicks.
You are not allowed to insult Leslie. You'll get a fatwa on you.
You're gonna have to leave it in now because
dolphins are fine, intelligent mammals. They're fine.
She clicks.
I had all these groups, urban photographers, and all these different community groups. And I think in a day and age where we are increasingly online and digital, I think the societies. I think one of the reasons people listen to this podcast is for the social capital. They feel like they're the fourth bar stall in the pub after we've had 5 pints. And I think being in these communities is really important for people's mental health and well-being. There was the podcast last week talking about how being increasingly isolated when they have children in rural areas. And I think they hit on something that is a larger trend, being increasingly isolated in a digital world, and it's not just rural communities as well, because being in an urban environment, it's actually, I'd argue it's probably worse. I don't know hardly any of my neighbours.
There's a
They
necessity.
come and go, and
Yeah.
it's urban isolation is a real thing, especially if you live in a tower block or something. You might know the person across, but you're not going to know anyone 2 floors down.
Well, there's a thing of social media, and which seems to be increasingly how we all communicate. Even this podcast, I suppose, is a form of it's a form of social media because of everything it's tied into.
Absolutely.
You only see the wave tops on social media. You only see the highlights people post. Nobody has the worst day of their lives and goes, well, selfie, and post that.
Some people do, but they are psychopaths.
Yeah. In fact, that's your challenge. The next time you have the worst day of your life, take a selfie.
I haven't got my phone.
tag hashtag CountrySlide. Yeah.
Hold on.
It might be listening to this episode, you know.
They might have just crashed the tractor.
Yeah, that's it. But people only ever post the highlights, the very top bits. So when you scroll through a feed and all you see is everyone's highlights, it looks like everyone else is having a better time than you. Everyone is living a more fulfilled life than you. Everyone is doing more interesting things than you. And you then compare all of their highlights to your knowledge of your everyday. And you go, well, there's no point carrying on. Everyone's living a better life than me. I don't even know why I bother. And that alone can increase the isolation or just generate that feeling of isolation. But there's also the geographical isolation of rural spaces. And I think, to answer Richard's question about why there's so many societies, a lot of those societies aren't new. I think in urban spaces, we're getting new societies, whereas in rural spaces, we've got societies that have been around for decades or even longer. But those societies were originally set up because of the isolation, to a degree.
Yeah, it's interesting. They were saying about pubs and pubs being community spaces now. I wonder if that will go full circle. Everyone will be down the pub at some point.
We used to have the church. We used to have the church as a community space. You'd have to go there, every Sunday at least. But actually, it wasn't that long ago that you'd have to go there every day. You'd have to go there for evening prayers and things like that. You'd be popping in on the way home from work, and it'd be work, church, pub, in that order.
Well, there was an interesting thing that on the island of Isla, the one that looks like Islay, makes fantastic whiskey, Ardbeg, Bunnahabhain, all that, Lafroy. They had something like 620 individual societies on Isla, and I think they got a population of, checks Google, I don't know, the 5th largest Scottish island, but you've only got a population of about 3,500 people. Yeah, they had 600 societies for everything. Some of these societies only had 2 people in, and they were have the traditional Shinty society and then the Shinty society and
society of putting
the breakaway Shinty
out.
society.
Yes, exactly. The continuity Shinty society. And they had all these various societies. And we went to, Claire and I, when she worked in whiskey, we used to go up to the Isle of Whiskey Festival for work and then get drunk there, obviously. And it was
Did you just say the Isle of Whiskey?
The Isla Whiskey Festival.
Not the Isla.
The Isla Whiskey Festival. And it's great because it attracts absolute lunatic sort of Vikings. They come over in their yachts these days rather than a longboat. But they come over and they sort of come over for the whole week. And each day during the Isla Whiskey Festival, one of the distilleries takes its turn on hosting the main day. And Claire's brands that she worked on was Ardbeg. And Ardbeg is very, very, very peaty. I mean, I think the tasting notes that was once described is TCP and burnt tires. Now you can't, that's the sort of stuff you want to
Oh
drink.
that's about right.
The phenols in it were anyway. So it was quite fun. So therefore, everyone who worked for the distillery, because they were saying we've got the revolutionary spirit, right? They all dressed up like as if they were Che Guevara or someone like that, except for one guy who didn't either read the memo or couldn't read the memo. And he knew they had to dress up. So we were all there in like these T-shirts with green T-shirts with sort of revolutionary symbols on and a beret on and whatnot. And one guy in full Arab dress. And they went, what?
Unexpected.
He's wearing a dish dash and a sort of and a kefi around his head and whatnot. And they sort of said, "What are you doing that for?" He goes, "Well, it's fancy dress. I knew that, and this is my fancy dress." And they went, "No, you've got this wrong. We had to. There was a theme to the fancy dress. No. So there's all these pictures of us all wandering around like South American bandits, and one guy rather incongruously dressed as an Arab. Anyway, he then proceeded to get a wee bit drunk, and he goes, "Look," he goes, "I'm quite authentic though." He goes, "I got my pistol," and it was a Webley service revolver, and I said, "Oh, that's cool."
Oh God!
I said, "That's great." And I picked it up. I said, "Can I have a look?" And he went, "Yeah, cool." And I said, "Is this deactivated?" And he went, "You what? What?" And I went, "Deactivated." And he goes, "No, it's my father's from the war." And I went, Jesus. And it had turned out that he worked at the distillery and they'd sacked him about 6 years before for being so drunk. But he still carried on working there. They sort of went, "Well, we can't usher him out." So he sort of worked there pro bono, just so I think he'd get his free additional stuff. But then rather wonderfully, he was telling us, Claire sort of just to pass time said, "Are you married?" And he goes, "I had a wife once, but she was too unreasonable." And we went, oh, what was that? He goes, "Well," he goes, "a mate of mine and he goes, we decided to go and watch the rugby at Murrayfield, which of course is quite a big deal getting off of Isla." He goes, "We went to watch the rugby."
How long?
Yeah.
You don't have to do the accent for that long.
Okay.
Let's see.
So he was quite. And he said, "How long?"
Actually, make the story really long in a Richard Negus kind of way, and make sure the accent goes for at least the next 10 minutes.
Consistently,
And he goes, she was too unreasonable. He goes, "Because I went off to watch the rugby in Murrayfield, she divorced me." And we all went sort of, "Oh, that's terrible." And he goes, "No, we're only away for 2 weeks." So he's on the piss for 2 weeks in Edinburgh. I said, "Who won?" And he goes, "I can't remember."
So unreasonable.
Too unreasonable. So yes, they got divorced. And so now he just sort of worked pro bono in the distillery, mooching about and occasionally dressed up as an Arab. Marvelous. I like that. If you ever get the chance, go to the Isla Whiskey
What a life
Festival.
to lead.
Yeah. I think they have all those societies because they are on an island, and then back to Richard's point, isolation, and also they're probably pickled.
Do you belong to many societies?
Well,
or clubs, I suppose.
Yes.
You know.
Wildfowling clubs, remember that? I was the chairman of the Bacton Historical Society, which we called the Bacton Hysterical Society, because I made more and more elaborate things to try and get people in, but I always got the same number of people.
Made stuff up.
Yeah, I mean, just to try and get.
Kid?
No, I got all sorts of fascinating guest speakers, but we'd only get. I think we got
Blue Kids.
the Blue Kids of the Blue Kids of Hawley.
The Bacton Blue Kids. If you could have just made that story up,
Yes,
put it out
exactly.
on Reddit, you might have got a few people in.
Aye. Well, I mean, so am I a member of any more societies? I'm not a member of as many as I used to be. I used to be a member of a couple of dining clubs, which were basically just an excuse to sort of drink port and sort of wax lyrical about stuff. And obviously, I'm a member of my club, but that's it.
I'd like to interview the other members of these societies about you, and just sort of see what the external viewpoint is
Well,
as well.
incompetent,
Just
I should
get the other
imagine.
side of the argument.
Oh, no, I know. I think largely that they just thought I was incompetent. I organised a great do, but they say, oh, was I supposed to make sure that he knew which day he was coming on? Oh well, let's do a talk about hedges instead. Yeah, so always had my PowerPoint ready to go just in case the guest speaker didn't turn up.
I'm not a member of anything, really. I don't play well with others, as you may have guessed.
I think the sort of people that run societies were the sort of people that were prefects at school. And I think there shouldn't be less bullying in the world. There should be more.
Yeah, agreed.
Some of these people need to be bullied.
One of the best insults I ever heard was, "I wish I could go back in time so I could bully you as a kid."
Yeah,
that's how, like, anyone that holds an AGM and gets irate about stuff and just
that's wildfowling
not
club
interested.
meetings. Wildfowling club meetings,
Yeah,
brilliant. They descend into near violence about things like sort of say, right, so we're not going to feed up any of the splashes for the first 2 weeks of the season, and you get someone at the back go, what?
Mate, you're throwing a bit of corn out. You're not trying to solve conflict in the Middle East.
No.
You're throwing a bit of corn out.
That's
Just chill your boots.
What? I can't
I don't know
believe it.
what your clubs are like over there, but I know, so I'm not in any clubs, but I do help them out with other bits. And like the fishing clubs and things, they're all in danger of literally dying out.
Yeah.
When you sort of they are the bulging age pyramid that's moving up, and they're really struggling to recruit younger members to fill in behind.
Those wildfowling clubs as well, like the memberships aging rapidly, and the younger membership. Wildfowling has a huge barrier to entry because it is really difficult to ensure people shoot safely and understand that it's bloody dangerous to be out on a tidal marsh. So you can't, most of them have very smart, safe guidelines where you'll have to go out, I don't know, like 10 trips with somebody. And 10 trips for somebody that's like 70 is quite a lot to ask. And to try and schedule the busy diary of say 30-something with a 70-year-old and get them to do that makes the uptick of young members quite hard. So yeah,
I think one of the biggest.
Is that going to be a thing for the future?
Yes, massive problem for the future for wildfowling is that you cannot get, for love nor money really, that experience under your belt very easily. And a lot of people they don't necessarily even live that close to it, to the foreshore, so they're traveling. So actually that getting yourself in there, and it's one of the few shooting sports that is still affordable and open to all, but there is this barrier that you have to cross, that you need a mentor, that you need these people to take you out. And so therefore, it's like I say, a lot of young people don't really get in. So it's a big challenge really. And I think, like a lot of things, I've got a what's it called? I'm on the committee of our cricket
A
club.
lovely bunch of coconuts.
No, I'm on the committee of our cricket club, and we struggle there to get young people to go and stay. That when they're little minis, and there's about 40 of them, but by the time you're actually then looking at them progressing to under 15s and then going up to the seniors, they've just discovered girls, or they've just said, no, I don't want to do that anymore. I had one of my promising upcoming batsmen say to me, no, I've decided I want to go fishing instead, which I thought, well, I can understand that. Yeah, exactly. Callum's
Another one
team
lost to the rod and the reel.
Bloody people.
There's quite a few sports that maybe it's sort of my brain doesn't work quite the way it should do.
Correct.
Yes, thank you.
There's no maybe. There's no perhaps about it.
Undiagnosed. undiagnosed, but
we've got the
there's
receipts.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I obviously I have a hyperfixation on certain things, and there's certain things such as cricket that
Mm.
has always failed to grab any of the little dopamine nuggets of attention, and as a result, just find it boring. Tennis, boring. Golf, nice to play, to watch, boring. Lots of things are just half the time I don't even know the rules. I'm not even sure what's going on at any given time. And there's no feel like the payoff to learn is just not worth the effort. Just give me a rod and a reel and send me off down the river.
You might be onto the edge of something there as well. It's back to the social media bit. That are we going to see any club or society that has a barrier to entry of patience and doesn't have good visuals, isn't very Instagrammable? Is that they're gonna die off because they're not worth the investment time to get the sort of social and dopamine reward? Whereas deer stalking, you can go and do that straight away, or going or other types of shooting, in that world or other societies where you can go out and like hill walking clubs and mountaineering clubs and groups are massive again, which you wouldn't have thought that, but it's all influencers in yoga pants and makeup. It's not old men. It's not old men in anoraks anymore.
All these bloody influencers that we see in everything, they infest everywhere like fleas on a dog. The few things you don't really see are the influencers going out wildfowling. I guess it's probably because it smells. It actually takes a huge amount of effort and skill to get out there. So you're not getting all the selfie stick gang flopping their hair about and sort of going, yeah, look at this. It's not very wildfowlery related thing. And I think actually if you look at most of the influencers, even in cricket is a fairly niche sport in the fact that there are some strange rules. You can't just go and you can kick a football about in a street. You have to go and have something that's slightly more organized with cricket. You can't, it's hard to practice cricket by yourself. I just think that there are some things that lend themselves to what the modern attractions is. And like you say, is that hill climbing and mountain walking and whatnot has lends itself to, I suppose, that here I am selfie stick on top of Ben Nevis or something. That looks cool. But you're not going to go and say selfie stick, here I am on a flipping marsh with a backdrop of the Achill Strait. It's not very sexy, really, I suppose.
No, and it does nothing for that place or it's an entirely self-serving thing as well, because all it is about the person doing it.
Carp fishing has quite a high barrier to entry because you need quite a lot of tackle to do such things, and sometimes it can be hard. But I don't think that's dropping in popularity. Well, it is technically, but I think it's probably more popular than ever. I mean, there is a slump in people going fishing generally because people do actually have to work and they can't be out. They can't take Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Can't afford to take 3 days off and go fishing anymore. But I'm not sure what sports have a high barrier to entry that could be dropping off.
Well,
I suppose cricket.
I know that you mentioned golf.
Golf seems to be fairly popular these days.
It is with younger people.
I don't think I think it's easy. It's easy to get into golf.
Yeah, and there are various price points at which you can go in. If you're here in Suffolk, my son's a member of DIS, which for young people is ridiculously generous. The price that they offer there. If he wants to go and glam it up a bit and go to Albury or something like that, well then it's 190 quid. But I think his membership at DIS for his age is 25 quid. It's nothing. And he gets his membership and he goes off and he signs in. So they're very, very good like that. I mean, I have to say there were one or two when he was first starting and he was slow because, of course, on a par 5, he was taking about 20 shots to. You get some of these grumpy old men who come on and sort of get chintering about stuff because he was slowing their play down. And I had to take one particularly vociferous old gentleman to one side and just advise him that it would possibly be unwise.
Give him a shoeing.
Well, no, I was just more saying I would hate to see his clubs bent into his head shape, if by accident he carried on in his current way. And I'm not now allowed back to Disc Golf Club. But I think he understood that it was better to encourage young people rather than insult them. Thus,
Banned from.
no, I was let back
Disc
in
Golf
because I
Club.
made a donation to them, and they were agreed, and they thought it was a shit anyway. So, but
it's pay to play then. Yeah.
no, he paid in blood. No, he didn't really. But it was just one of those things. I thought, that's one of the reasons why some people don't join societies, because if you do walk in as a stranger. And so if we loop it back to the WI, one of the things that I noticed was that if younger women go there and newcomers go in, they are welcomed in like sort of, it might be a female thing. I don't know. I know, but I don't know. I'm not a woman, so I don't know. I'm generalizing here with no knowledge. But they certainly are much more welcoming because they want to have new members. Wildfowling clubs and lots of other clubs say they want new members. Then when some new member actually does walk in, they're sort of looked at as if they've just landed like one of the green children of Woolpit. So it's rather it's difficult, I think. And you've got to have enough self-confidence to walk into that room as a complete stranger into this thing, saying, I know nothing about this and I want to come and learn something about it. And some people just aren't that welcoming with open arms.
And you could occasionally walk into some massive dispute between the other club or something like that, or you can drop your foot in it by talking about the wrong thing. There's a whole separatist WI group in Wales called Merched y Wawr, which is like Women of the Dawn, which is the non-WI. They're sort of the radical break-offs from the WI.
Women of the Dawn?
I've also done talks to them.
Bloody hell.
They're scary. They are scary. I've done talks to them.
I prefer Women of the Night.
They have different rates.
Right. Okay.
Which one's cheaper?
Listen.
Drag this one into harbour.
Yes.
On the subject of societies, my friend Stu was he
is this Catman Stu?
Catman Stu.
Yeah.
He was the head bailiff on a lake, and he happened to go to the Ware Angling Club AGM, and he's like, they were like, right, subject number 4. What about banning that bloke with a dog? And I was like, he said, what do you mean? What's happening? And I happened to be the man with the dog. So he quietly fought my corner and said, no, I don't think it was necessary. Get this, so the whole situation was, you're allowed to walk round, it's a public right away around the lake. So you're allowed to walk around the lake with a dog. You're allowed to fish the lake. You are absolutely not allowed to fish the lake with a dog, which makes 0 sense to me. So I went to walk the dog and had a fishing rod. I was unfortunate to catch a £3 perch, and I nearly got banned for it. Nearly had my ticket taken away from me. They were like, okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to write the letter to him and ban him? And Catman Stu was like, I don't think that's necessary. Actually, he's a proper geezer, so he probably didn't say exactly those words. But yeah, thanks to Catman Stu, my ticket didn't get taken away. I'm still a member to this day.
I've run out of port, so we ought to go and wrap this up soon, because otherwise I start making sense or something.
Right.
Should we leave it there?
Yes. Okay.
Richard, have you been up to anything exciting this week?
Hey. Oh, hold on. I went to the WI.
What? Well,
Dear. Are we done now?
How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.